Mother 3 is a game that was made for the Nintendo Game Boy Advance that was released in 2006 by Shigesato Itoi in Japan, though it unfortunately has not come out officially in anywhere outside of Japan. And the screenshots that will be shown in this slideshow are from the translation. Yeah, yeah, and um, and and this is for English class and a project about dystopian stuff. Because I may also post this to YouTube. Because yeah, before getting into the dystopian aspect specifically, I will be talking about just overall aspects of the game itself, and yeah, stuff like like the story and the characters, but not too in depth because there's like a major point and stuff. So there are different aspects of the story of the game. Firstly, being the personal story of the characters, which is okay. So the which is for most people the focal point of like the game and the main reason why it's played. For me, and also at least for me, because like yeah, I like cool sad stories, like Anyway, these are the characters. The story is about you play most of the game. You play as Lucas, which is this guy, and there's his family. Lucas, Klaus, Hinawa, and Flint. This is his twin, and then Hinawa dies, and then Flint is sad, and Klaus goes missing. And I won't get into too much detail because if anyone ever feels like playing this because of this video, which no one I don't think anyone will, but just in case, I'm not gonna go into too many spoilers about this guy. Anyway, uh, yeah. So there's also like it's RPG, Nintendo 2006. They're gonna have to save the world in some way, which is and they're like there's these 7 needles protected by the Gypsy people and the masked man, which I won't get into because spoilers. And this guy, remember this guy, I will get into that. But you must be asking, how is any of this dystopian at all? You're just talking about RPG stuff, blah blah blah, whatever. But well, the most of the game itself is not dystopian, but it's only it has some hints of like what will come in the future, and some and themes like environmentalism as shown as in the slide. I should have waited a little bit to. Oh, okay, whatever. Anyway, so one of the most obvious themes that you see in the beginning of the game is that of environmentalism, as there are a lot of stuff about like pollution and gentrification as shown in this image. These images, because this is the same place. This is Stoutsmilly Village in the first 3 chapters, and this is it after a 3-year time skip from chapter 3 onward. The reason why this happens, I will get into later. But looking at the first chapter, if you play the other Mother games, because Mother 3, there's gonna be Mother 1 and 2. Why is it so different from the other Mother games? This one is Earthbound, which is Mother 2. And the original premise of the Mother games was like, a toy in 1980 something was like, all these RPGs are always about some fantasy lord, knight, people, wizard, blah blah blah, princess stuff. What if instead of that, I just made an RPG that takes place in a stereotypical version of the United States, when the heroes are just a bunch of 12-year-olds walking around and saving the world from an evil alien that wants to kill everyone. And that's the original premise of the Mother series. Actually, that's Earthbound because, well, whatever. Anyway, wait, hold on. Okay. Never. I kind of got off track. Okay, so basically, why is it so different from the other Mother games? Is because of something that is revealed to the player very late in the game. Because when you first play Mother 3 and see this, you kind of think you're like in an alternate universe or in the past or something. Because this is the America in the 90s. Like, yeah, Mother 1 is in the 80s, Mother 2 is in the 90s, and then why out of nowhere is it's in this village with no technology and rural with stuff like that. And that's because of what leader or letter, I don't know how to pronounce his name because it's only shown in text. But basically, really late in the game, you hear the story from him, and which goes uh, basically the way that the story goes is at some point after the both mother games, humans doing their stuff, pollution, global warming, blah blah blah, they end up destroying the world, like ending the world, everyone dies. uh, Typical stuff that's probably gonna happen at some point. um, so a few people, when this was happening, a few people decide to get on a sort of ship, maybe boat, maybe spaceship, whatever. At some point, and after this, at some point, some people decided to get onto what's called the White Ship, and they flee from there from the world that was being destroyed to the deserted Nowhere Islands, which is where like the majority no, which is where the game takes place in its entirety. Um, and yeah, we never actually get to see what the regular world, old world looks like. But why? And okay, yeah, and I forgot to mention this. After they go to the Nowhere Islands, they erase all of the memories of the people of the White Ship, except for leader because they wanted the leader slash leader because they needed one person to remember in case it was needed, which it was. So yay. Um, Everyone's memories are erased and replaced with a story they made up for themselves, and the game takes place sometime after that, probably like a few years. But why? How does this place that was just so rural and peaceful go to a dystopia? This isn't a dystopia, by the way. That's gonna shut up later. But basically the reason is this guy, this child, who's called Pokey in the second game, but Porky in the third because of translation. That doesn't matter. Okay, just because of this guy called Porky, I'm gonna be called him Porky because of the Mother 3 name, and because of the fan translation, so it's different. So basically, this is one of the characters that shows up in Earthbound, and he is just a regular guy, person, child. Porky is just regular, slightly annoying child from Earthbound, which is the second game. Um, and in that game, he at some point becomes like super rich and makes a deal with Gygas, which is the villain of Earthbound, which is like an evil alien. And then he becomes super powerful, and Gygas gives him the ability to time travel, which is how he gets to the Mother 3 place. Um, okay, now, yeah. And he after he goes to the Nowhere Islands from Mother 3, he assembles an army, which is the Big Mask army. Um, yeah, he just yeah, and he starts making experiments. He just takes over the entire place, and um, and conducts like weird experiments with these weird amalgamations of animals and machines, and this guy, which I will not be getting into. As I probably said like 2 times, Newport City is is where the most like overtly dystopian stuff takes place. Newport City. At some point in the game, you get to Newport City, which is the most overtly dystopian era of the game, and yeah, and Porky, Porky, this guy, he makes whoops, he makes the entire city to appeal to him, to like, oh, I'm Porky, I'm awesome, I'm really cool, and you guys love me. I'm gonna build an entire statue and make an entire city named after me, and make it a whole building named after me, that kind of stuff. Because, yeah. But how, and this is how the way, this is gonna be kind of me just reading what I wrote, because yeah, I think that's pretty much self-explanatory. I don't think there's anything else I can say. But yeah, as I was talking about here, the title of the track that plays in Newport City also like implies this, like, isn't this such an utopia? Utopia is opposite of dystopia, and it's clearly a dystopia, and this is a lie. And the environmental destruction is, I'm just gonna read it. As mentioned before, the Big Mac's army experiments on living beings, causes forest fires, and builds structures like Newport City and the Chimera Lab. It's like Thunder Tower, that kind of stuff. The governmental control. The Big Mac's army gives out happy boxes to the people of Tazmily to brainwash them into following Porky. There's in chapter 3 in the game, there's this part when you play as this little monkey guy called Salsa, and you're forced to deliver these happy boxes to like 3 residents of Tazmily, and later in the game, after the time skip in chapter 4, you can see that like everyone has these now. Which, by the way, I know these, when it might sound like, oh, TV's bad, blah blah blah. No, it's not that. The creator specifically stated that it's not supposed to mean that, and also like it would be kind of dumb to make that kind of critique in a game. I mean, there are nuances, but you know what I mean. But yeah, and as loss of individualism, all residents of the Lower Island are convinced to move to Newport City, with one character even joining the Big Mass, which is this guy here, Isaac. After a certain point in the game where you spent like a while away from Tazmily, but when you come back, everyone's like, a bunch of people are missing. And at some point in the game, you go back to Tazmily, and it's like a bunch of people are missing, and the music is sadder. And when you talk to the remaining NPCs there, they all are talking like, oh, everyone else went to Newport City, and blah blah blah, that kind of stuff. But a lot of the reasons for like all this to happen, for like Newport City and Porky and the whole army and everything being around him, is all about like Porky as a character, as you like see him in the rest of Earthbound, especially, because it's a sequel. You're obviously gonna understand it better if you play the second one. But anyway, one of the main 2 aspects of why the main 2 aspects of what we can see in Porky in Mother 3 is that, firstly, we can, in the beginning of Earthbound, we can see that Porky suffers from abusive parents, at least his dad, who like beats up him and his brother off screen, and in Mother 3, he also makes a whole restaurant with robots built to resemble his mom, which is probably because she was neglectful, and he really, which is probably because she was neglectful of him, and he made the robots for for him to feel more loved, which is sad. And he also really idolizes Ness from Earthbound, which is the main character. He's right here, this guy, and which is hinted in Earthbound by a dialogue in Magicant, which is a sequence that takes place inside Ness's head, and in Mother 3, this is really expanded a lot by. Firstly, there's an area in New York City that is just a theater dedicated to showing off Ness and his adventures. Whoops. Which is just a show off Ness and his adventures with his friends, and a bunch of. There's an area. This is really clear when there's an area you see in Earthbound. In Mother 3, actually, damn. This is evident in an area in Mother 3, in Newport City, when you go to a theater which is just entirely dedicated to idolizing Ness and being like, oh, look at this guy, isn't he awesome? Because Ness, and he idolizes him, which is, and also because he keeps Ness's yo-yo in Thunder Tower in his room, and he sells Ness's hat, replicas of Ness's hat, and a lot of and these two aspects kind of relate to each other, because one of the reasons that's most likely for Porky to be jealous of Ness is that he grew up in a household that with an abusive father and a neglectful mother and stuff like that, and Ness just grew up in a loving family right next to him because they were neighbors, and that most likely contributed to Porky being jealous of Ness. But after the being in New York City, you get to it's an RPG. Porky's like the almost final boss, and after you fight him, he just goes inside the absolutely safe capsule, and he just stays. Wait, I forgot to mention. Alright. Yeah, okay. So, also, I'm sorry, I went off track. I forgot to mention this. One of the aspects of Porky as character is that he's clearly still a child. Because in the world of Earthbound, when you time travel, it messes up your body, because there's a sequence in Earthbound when Dr. Andonut, he's like, oh, you guys, you can't time travel, I gotta make you robot bodies for you to go back in time and defeat Gygax and stuff. Yeah. Basically, but what I'm trying to get at is that basically, if you time travel in this universe, it's messed up and it messes up your body, which is clearly what we see in Mother 3, as he's like a hyper-aged child, because his body is still a child, but his hair is wet and his skin is weird, and he's immortal. All of this time traveling he did made him immortal somehow, and he also just clearly still thinks like a child. He still has the mind of a child, which we can see in both the Chimera experiments with these, which is him just kind of playing with the animals and treating them like his toys, and Newport City being built to idolize him. There's a giant statue made of him. There's a amusement park made for him. There's an Empire Porky building named after him. There's also the theater, and stuff. I got into already. So back to where I was before I lost track. Porky's fate. After you defeat him in the end of the game, Ness is long. long gone by then. After you defeat Porky, he just goes into the absolutely safe capsule and just stays trapped in there forever. And yeah, it's pretty bleak. Yeah. There was supposed to be another slide here, but I think I forgot to make it. But yeah. Pretend there's like a big the end here. Okay. So yeah, that's about it. But and the most of the dystopian aspects are in Newport City and the way Porky does stuff. But this is also just getting into Porky as a character and all the stuff surrounding him. But yeah, that's about it. Bye bye.